Hello and welcome viewers, I'm Pia and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top stories this hour. US President Donald Trump has stated that negotiations over the proposed peace plan for Gaza have been very successful and expects the first phase of the plan to be completed by the end of the week. A 17-year-old boy and a 43-year-old woman were killed while 14 others have been injured in a shooting incident in Alabama's capital, Montgomery. Police say that multiple individuals pulled out their weapons and started firing. No arrests have been announced so far. An investigation is underway. Activists detained by Israeli authorities from the global Sumud flotilla continue returning home, with now citizens of Spain and Tunisia landing back after being deported. Police are investigating the crime scene in Sydney's inner west after a man allegedly fired around 50 bullets at passing cars from his property, wounding at least 16 people. The suspect is in custody and the police have also recovered 2 rifles from the scene. Wildfires have destroyed nearly 400 hectares in the northern area of the French island of Corsica. According to authorities, nearly 180 firefighters, 50 vehicles and 4 aircrafts have been mobilized to tackle the blaze. France has announced the composition of a new government led by Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu. Lecornu's 2 predecessors were ousted over efforts to rein in France's budget deficit, which is the largest in the Eurozone. This will be the 5th French government in the last 2 years. Australia has signed a new defence agreement with Papua New Guinea, its first in more than 70 years, as Canberra seeks to block China from expanding its security footprint in the Indo-Pacific. Rescue operations in Indonesia's tragic school roof collapse have reached the final stage as the death toll now climbs to 49. All right, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. What's happening in Europe? The Russia-Ukraine war has witnessed advanced weapon systems operating on the ground. There are now reports that US Patriot surface-to-air missile systems used by Ukrainian forces are performing rather poorly in intercepting Russian ballistic missiles. The system has failed to intercept Russian missiles in recent attacks, attributed to the fact that Russia is continuously modernizing its weapons to circumvent American systems. Ukraine has recently received Patriot systems from Israel and is expected to receive more from other European partners. Meanwhile, Moscow's mayor has stated that Russian air defenses have destroyed drones flying towards the city. Overnight, Russia claimed to have downed around 251 drones launched from Ukraine. As the attacks intensify, the significance of defense systems become more prominent in order to counter the missile and drone threats. With us on the broadcast is Gilbert Doctorow, International Relations and Russian Affairs expert, joining us from Brussels in Belgium. So at the outset, I'd like to ask you, what do you make of these fresh reports coming in regarding the effectiveness of the Patriot missile systems? They say that it's not as effective on the ground, as interceptions are not as common. What sort of weight would you attribute to these reports?
Essentially, this is simply confirming what we knew more than a year ago, that the Patriot system is not adequate to stop hypersonic missiles and to stop other missiles which have been redesigned to take into account its capabilities. Therefore, the defensive value of the American Patriots, which has been widely discussed when it was considered to ship them or not to ship them to Ukraine, this has been vastly exaggerated. The problems that Ukraine faces are more complicated, both at the high end and at the low end of incoming Russian attacks than one would have imagined a year ago.
Indeed, and in the meantime, President Zelensky has made a request with the US administration for the procurement of Tomahawk missiles. In your assessment, how long would this procedure take, and would it really help Ukraine in the short term?
There's been a lot of discussion. This in the United States, and globally. And it was a central issue that came up in Vladimir Putin's widely televised speech and question and answer session in the Valdai discussion group gathering in Sochi last Thursday. The issue of tomahawks is complex. It is unlikely that the United States has available tomahawks to move to Ukraine. More likely, it would tap its European partners, for example, Spain, to dispatch their tomahawks. The actual range of the tomahawks that could or would be shipped to Ukraine is debatable. Some say it's 2,500 kilometers. Some say it's substantially less, depending on the model of the tomahawk that's made available. But the issue is much bigger than that. This really is a stress test for Mr. Putin's government. How do they respond to what could be a very serious escalation of the war by the United States? Mr. Putin himself waffled on this issue last Thursday. And at one moment he said that America dispatching the tomahawks to Ukraine would destroy U.S.-Russian relations, meaning move it to war. At a later moment, he caught himself and said, no, this dispatch of tomahawks would do damage to the budding relationship. Well, which is it? The point is that Russia seems undecided, and that has put in question the value of Mr. Putin's deterrence to the United States and NATO.
Indeed, and where do you think, considering the fact that tactics have been evolving on the battlefield, on the ground, where do you think hybrid warfare is going to be factored in the short term, especially considering now tanks are being used to launch drones? We've seen certain sightings also. We've discussed this as well. Where do you think this is headed?
Well, the nature of warfare has evolved enormously in the 3 years of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. At the outset, Russia appeared to have a massive advantage. And I'd say this in terms of not just of manpower, which remains the same. The correlation of populations of the two countries has worked to Russia's advantage in the course of the war, as so many people have fled Ukraine, making the population not 40 million as it was at the outset, but something more like 25 million, while Russia's population has stood at 145 million and probably has risen to 150 million, keeping in account all of the Ukrainians that are now in what is Russian territory. So on the manpower side, not much has changed. On the hardware side, from the very beginning, Russia had something like a 10-to-1 advantage in artillery shells, artillery tubes, in what was initially, in this war of attrition, an artillery war. In the meantime, drones have come from nowhere to become the real arms of this war. And in drones, the Russia and Ukraine are much more closely matched than in the artillery, which defined the conflict for the first 2 years. Essentially, I mean, you see this very frankly stated on Russian state television when their war correspondents interview soldiers in the field, and the soldiers say, "Oh, all those birds, we have to be very careful what we do." Those birds, of course, those are Ukrainian attack drones. Men are dying from these drones on both sides. But as I say, the reduction from expensive tanks, armored artillery, armored personnel carriers, and so forth, to very cheap drones has changed the nature of the war to Ukraine's advantage. So the sides are more balanced today than they were a year ago.
Indeed, sir. And speaking of Putin, apart from sending a direct warning to the United States, he's also sent a warning to Europe. He has stated that European nations are trying to seize ships that carry Russian oil to global markets would amount to piracy and could trigger a forceful response while sharply destabilizing the global oil market. This was something that we were discussing yesterday with regards to the French government's action against a ship that they claim is a part of Russia's shadow fleet that was in fact detained by French authorities. In the meantime, the situation is also becoming tense in the Baltic Sea, as you were pointing out earlier. So could the war protract on this front, factoring in Putin's recent statement?
There is no reason for the war to be protracted if Mr. Putin would use the conventional weapons at his disposal. It is entirely within his power to end the war tomorrow by using Oreshnik's hypersonic missiles to destroy what they call the decision-making centers of Ukraine. That could happen tomorrow. Mr. Zelensky's regime could disappear tomorrow if Mr. Putin had the nerve, shall we say, to end the war. Instead, he is protracting the war unnecessarily, causing deaths on both sides. So this is the issue of the day. Does Russia have a determined, energetic leader, as it seemed to have in the past, or does it have an overaged and waffling leader, which appeared to be the case last Thursday at Valdai?
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking out time sharing your analysis with us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting our focus away from Europe towards the United States. The US government has sent a memo to 9 universities outlining requirements for preferential access to federal funds, including a new cap on international undergraduate students. The Trump administration's 10-point memo limits foreign students to 15% of total enrollment, with no more than 5% from any single country. The memo, titled A Compact for Academic Excellence in Higher Education, also includes requirements on admissions, tuitions, freezes, data transparency, and screening foreign students for alignment with American and Western values. Universities failing to comply would lose federal benefits, while compliant institutions may receive federal rewards. Indian students, who form a significant portion of US international enrollment, say that the new 5% country cap could block access to affordable campuses and create visa uncertainties. The 9 universities receiving the memo include the University of Arizona, Brown University, Dartmouth, MIT, Pennsylvania, USC, Texas, Virginia, and Vanderbilt. With us on the broadcast is Dr. Satoru Nagao, fellow at the Hudson Institute, joining us from Tokyo. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Once again, we're seeing the Trump administration's tiff with universities escalate. A fresh memo has been sent to 9 such universities. What could the potential consequences of these universities implementing this plan be for the American economy at large, which does in fact reap the benefits of foreign students, international students paying quite high tuition fees?
In this case, the why Trump administration focusing on the university student or university itself as a target of their policies, there are 3 reasons, I believe. Firstly, of course, America first means that the American student should get more benefit than the foreign student is the concept they believe. And both support Trump administration because of this is one of the reasons. But this is not the only reason. Indeed, second and third is indeed very important. Firstly, the view from the Trump administration, university is the fortress of the left-wing people. So that's why when the Trump administration tried to get majority in the next election, firstly, they need to attack fortress, which is a university. So then in this case, third reason is related with the second reason. Indeed, since October 7th, 2023 attack against Israel, many anti-Israel movement has happened in the university, and students came from foreign countries joined this move the Trump administration believe. So such kind of the anti-Israel movement is, despite this is anti-Israel, Trump administration believe this is anti-United States movement, and this is the too left they believe, and foreign invasion they believe. So that's why they try to cracking down the university as a fortress of the left wing. This is connected. So that's why the Trump administration will not back down in this issue, because they believe this is a fortress of the enemy side. So that's why even if the foreign student is influence of the United States, and the foreign student contributes the economy on the U.S. economy. If such kind of situation has happened, even if such kind of situation, Trump administration see this university their enemy, they believe.
Indeed, and a lot of critics are meantime pointing out that what the Trump administration is doing is undermining institutional independence. And do you think then these institutes could then approach court against the Trump administration? Would it lead to a legal showdown?
It is true that American first policy is not popular from the other country, that's true. But at the same time, it is also true that still the America accepting many foreigners as a student, workers, legally. So that's why, indeed, still America is cooperate with other country, I think, under the Trump administration. But at the same time, it is true that this is not a popular policy from the other country, and American influence towards other country could be declined, some people believe. But at the same time, Trump administration itself shows a very strong influence in the security field. That's also true because compared with the Biden age of the Biden administration, Biden administration is a little bit too weak, and Trump administration is too strong. So that's why too strong is better than the too weak in some case. So that's why it is also true that even if the American first policy is not popular from the other countries, still American shows the influence, and everyone need to look the move of the Trump administration in the United States. So that is true, I believe.
All right, so I request you to stay on with us as we're tracking further updates from the United States. We're now learning that protests are underway in Portland in Oregon. The latest began on Friday when people demonstrated outside the city's immigration detention facility after U.S. President Donald Trump announced that he would send federal agents to crack down on such protests. Meanwhile, on Saturday, hundreds gathered in southwest Portland, starting at Elizabeth Carruthers Park before marching to the ICE detention facilities. Crowds blocked the road outside the building, and federal officers fired tear gas, smoke canisters and pepper spray in order to disperse them, making at least 7 arrests, 2 of whom were released later that day. Last week, President Trump had declared that he would be deploying up to 200 members of the Oregon National Guard to Portland, which was then temporarily blocked by U.S. District Judge Karen Immergut. Additionally, the judge ruled that the Trump administration lacked a legal basis to federalize state troops. Meanwhile, in court filings yesterday, lawyers for Oregon, California and Portland urged Judge Immergut to expand her order to cover California troops as well. This comes as protesters continue to express opposition to the federal troop presence as legal and constitutional questions remain over the use of federalized military units in domestic cities. Now, the Trump administration says that the deployments are intended to protect federal assets and officers, but local leaders and advocates warn that such moves may escalate tensions in Portland and other targeted cities such as Washington, D.C., Chicago and Los Angeles. Still with us on the broadcast is Dr. Satoru Nagao, fellow at the Hudson Institute in Tokyo. We've been seeing these protests crop up not just in Portland, but in Memphis as well as in Chicago over the Trump administration's recent orders. Donald Trump claims that he's trying to rein in crime, trying to reduce the statistics of crime in these cities, but particularly he's targeting Democratic-led cities. Do you think down the line this battle, if prolonged, could escalate to the point of going to the U.S. Supreme Court as well?
Yes, it could be escalate, I think, because there are the 2 aspects as a background of this movement. Firstly, of course, illegal means that if the illegal immigrant can stay and work for a long time is illegal. So that's why, of course, legal, from the legal issue, of course, the Trump administration must crack down. That is true. But at the same time, what administration sent the troops to indicate that this is not purely the illegal or not. Indeed, this is the issue of the left or right. Trump administration is right side, government, and the local government in these cities are left-wing party Democrats lead the cities. So that's why Trump administration tried to cracking down the fortress of the left side, which is Democrat side, one by one. So that's why this is not purely legal or illegal. This is indeed the internal political matter of the United States. The Trump administration wants to expand their influence in the election, and the left-wing local government try to resist it. That is such kind of the movement, the background of such kind of movement currently, I think.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking out time sharing your analysis with us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting focus to more developments coming in. Oil prices have risen to about 1.5% today after OPEC Plus announced a lower than expected increase in production for November. This decision, aligning with October's output hike, was aimed at stabilizing the market amid concerns of an oversupply. As a result, the Brent crude rose to $65.44 per barrel. Meanwhile, U.S. West Texas Intermediate hit $61.77 per barrel. Even though prices have gone up, experts warn that weak demand, especially during refinery maintenance worldwide and the coming winter, might stop prices from rising even further. Additionally, ongoing conflicts and sanctions on Russia plus attacks on its energy facilities are affecting the global oil market. Shifting focus to what's happening in Australia, police are set to interrogate the suspect behind the shooting incident in Sydney. The police had initially stated that up to 100 bullets were fired and 20 people were wounded. However, the New South Wales Police Acting Superintendent Stephen Parry has now revised the number of shots fired to about 50 and the toll of the wounded to 16. The accused shooter was taken to a hospital and treated for minor injuries to the area around his eyes that were sustained during his arrest. However, no charges have been laid against the alleged gunman who opened fire at passers-by. Here's what Stephen Parry had to say. Listen in.
Okay, following on from last night's incident about 7:44 p.m, a 60-year-old male was arrested at the scene by specialist police officers. He received a number of minor injuries. He has been treated at Bankstown Hospital. He's been released, and a short time ago he was returned to custody here at Burwood Police Station. He's yet to be interviewed by detectives. That process is